All right, joining us now to talk more about the stalemate in Congress over more coronavirus relief is political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, always good to have you on here. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, the failure to pass another round of stimulus really just hurts struggling Americans in this country. But when you look at it from a political standpoint, who do you think the public is going to blame for this gridlock?
Well, I think it's a pox on both houses, to be honest with you. Democrats and Republicans continue to not be able to get together and come up with packages that meet the needs of the American people. The difference between the $300 billion package that the Republicans were proposing and the $3 trillion package the Democrats wanted is obviously a huge, huge difference that they were unable to work out, Alex.
Yeah, and that's the part that I think a lot of people have trouble understanding. How can the two sides be so far apart in terms of how much relief the American people need during this economic crisis?
The argument goes on about how much debt and money the American government can continue to absorb and spend. I think there's an argument there. Republicans on their side of the aisle believe that the $3 trillion is way too much money. Democrats think it's not nearly enough money at $300 billion. And so somewhere in there lies a deal. And I think that was the calculus by Democrats today, that once they defeated this bill, that Republicans would come back to the table and perhaps before Election Day, maybe there could be a deal that will deliver more money to the American people.
Right, but of course the window is rapidly closing to try to work out some sort of a deal. Just a few weeks left in the session for Congress, and obviously you heard from a lot of the lawmakers there, many of them questioning whether another stimulus package can actually be passed before the November election. What do you think needs to happen in order for some sort of a deal to be worked out here?
Well, leaders on both sides of the aisle have to get in a room and say the number isn't $3 trillion or $2 trillion or 300 billion, it's 1.5 trillion, something. I mean, what's lacking in Washington right now, what's really upsetting a lot of Americans, I think, is this inability to sit down and work out a deal. And Republicans and Democrats are experts at pointing fingers at the other party and saying, well, they're the reason why it's not happening. But if you go back into American history, time and time again, Democrats and Republicans have been able to sit down and find something that works for both parties. The backdrop here, though, that is problematic is that the election is just around the corner. And so this may just remain a problem until Election Day.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because we obviously saw that spirit of bipartisanship when you saw Congress, quickly passing these other coronavirus relief packages. But obviously, the political climate right now, as we move toward the November election, is a lot different.
Absolutely, and this is not unusual. This is what happens in the ramp up and in the days leading up to the election. Of course, Republicans are saying Democrats move the goalpost to the extent that Republicans couldn't climb on board because they didn't want a bill passed to give the president a victory before the election. And in turn, Democrats are saying Republicans aren't delivering the kind of relief that's necessary for real help to the American public. So everybody's got a reason to support or not support what's going on, but Election Day always overshadows everything.
Yeah, and of course you have millions of Americans out of work right now, caught in the middle of all of this. We have to leave the conversation right there. Always appreciate you coming on and appreciate your insight, political analyst Brian Sobel. Take care.
Absolutely, Alex. Take care.